Ryterband. It was more in the beginning.
Good morning. Good morning. I've been a little under the weather. I'm hoping my voice will last today through the announcements. I have some thanks to give. There's a lot of work that goes into putting a brunch on a recurring basis. And the committee I have steps up wonderfully. I appreciate them very much. And I just want to call them out individually. And so we can collectively give them a round of applause. Carol Graff is always here before I am, even if I'm early. She manages everything going on in the kitchen, and I bring stuff in, and she and Wendy Gray do the slicing and the cutting and the preparing and the delivering all of the stuff out here. Peggy Weller does the same thing, and she also brings the locks in, so we can appreciate Peggy for bringing the locks in. Sarah Faust is always here, and lending a hand. We appreciate that. Whoops, she's not here. She's in the building. Yeah. And then Vicki Miner comes in. She takes care of the cash box, which is always very helpful. Thank you, Vicki. And another special thanks for a member, somebody who's not on our committee, but I'm not sure we could do this without him, and that is the Mitchell Faust and his technical expertise. So when the speaker comes in, as happens today, my computer doesn't have the right adapter. You can't get into the email. I don't know how this is going to work. Tells me this. I'm acting like I know what I'm doing, but I'm continually looking at the door for when Mitchell shows up. And so I really appreciate that. Another announcement, I've been hearing questions from people. I would like to see the recorded brunches. How can we do that? Well, I will tell you that the reason we can't see them yet is because I have a job to do. And I haven't done that job. But I will do that job this week. I will get these license agreements into the office so they can then upload those. And we will have that done within a week. And then Jeff has agreed to let us record this one. Yep. And so this one will be up there also. And so at this point, let me introduce Jeff Blumer. Jeff Blumer, one of our own. I've known Jeff a number of years, and it seems like every time I see Jeff, he's doing something different. He's like a Renaissance man. He does all kinds of different things. And so I have a little bio that I want to tell you a little bit more about Jeff. He graduated from Cornell University in 1996 with a BS in Hospitality Management and has a master's degree in Business Administration from Southern New Hampshire University. Originally from New York, Jeff has lived and worked in Dayton for the past 20 years. He is currently the Jewish Community Relations Council Director at the Jewish Federation of Greater Dayton, having started there in September of 2023. The mission of the Dayton Jewish Community Relations Council is to ensure the growth, resilience, safety of the Jewish people in our community and nation, Israel, and throughout the world. The JCRC works in collaboration with the Greater Dayton community to foster cultural humility and advocate for a just, democratic, and pluralistic Mosaic society. And he will now be speaking to us on anti-Semitism. Jeff?
I'm very, very happy to be here. I've been to many of these talks and imagined what I would present over the years. And as was pointed out, that might have changed. The subject might have changed of what I might have decided to talk about. Part of this origin story of this particular talk is if you, on a Sunday morning, decide to go get a cup of coffee and there's a committee meeting happening, you may be invited to join the committee. You may be invited to help find a speaker, or you may become that speaker. So be careful where you have your coffee, or you might wind up in my place. Like I said, I'm very happy to be here. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about myself, a little bit about the Federation, specifically my job in the JCRC, which a big part of that is unfortunately anti-Semitism, because it's still alive and well, and unfortunately in many ways growing. So we're gonna talk about that in that context. I recently, I'm constantly getting educated in this area, so I recently attended a seminar called Demystifying Anti-Semitism, and so I shamelessly stole some of the slides from that. So we're gonna have it says breakout session, basically work at our tables on a couple of provocative questions, and then come back and discuss that a little bit. But that will mean that I have to get to that part. And any of you who have known me might know that I can talk a little bit. So I know some people, when they're told the amount of time that they're gonna be up there, say, oh no, what do I have to say that will take that long? Mine is unfortunately the opposite. So feel free to wave at me or give me the keep it moving symbol. I will not get offended, I promise you. So real quick, family-wise, which leads to my Dayton origin story. It was mentioned that I graduated from Cornell, degree in hospitality management. I went to community college first. I went to Nassau Community College to study hotel restaurant management. And the reason I went there is because I dreamed of going to Cornell, but I didn't do the whole thing where you gotta get really good grades. So I decided to buckle down, work hard, and I did really well at community college while working full time, and established myself pretty well, kind of career-wise, moving up within the restaurant I was working at. I wound up getting doing the Disney World college program. So that set me to be able to get accepted to Cornell, which I was really excited about. But having not been a great student, I felt desperate that I was going from bad grades in community college to an Ivy League institution. I was very nervous about this. So back then there was a course called Where There's a Will, There's an A. And one of the main points was always sit in the front row. And I took that to heart and got to class. I actually had a bicycle that I was riding around and wanted to make sure to be on time everywhere. And this was a far off building. So I went to the first class on the first day of classes, and I sat in the front row. And as people were coming into the classroom, I realized that I was the only one in the front row, and I was this close to the lectern, and I was like, this is a little weird. So I turned around to a group of girls who was behind me and said, will someone sit in the front row with me? I'm kind of a nerd, and I like to do that. And Molly said she would sit with me, and the rest is history. And that is why someone born in Brooklyn and raised on Long Island is in Dayton, Ohio. So that's what got me here. That's the origin story. And we have 3 wonderful children. 2 of them are college seniors right now. I can't believe it. One at UC and one at Blumer College in Pennsylvania. And we have a freshman. She's playing goalie for field hockey at all women's college in Raleigh, North Carolina, American College. And Rebecca, who's at Muhlenberg, actually just got an internship for the JCC, so I'm really excited about that opportunity for JCC in the Lehigh Valley. And Molly is an Oakland girl, and we have been members at Temple Israel since we got back into town. So after we moved here, 2005. We were just kind of doing the math on that. So, and this is a picture, it was a great coming together, but sad reason. I started with the Federation and the JCC in September of 2023. We all know what happened in October of 2023. It's a week after I started. This is a group, many of which from Temple Israel in Washington, on a solidarity march for the hostages and all the rest, so. Oh. All right, so I want to start the story with the Jewish Federation of Greater Dayton because we have 4 agencies. So we have Jewish Family Services, and Jewish Family Services is essentially the social work of the Federation. And what I love about what Tara, who heads that, she's also my mentor at the Federation, she always says, being Jewish is not about who we serve, it's about why we serve. And I take that to heart with our department as well. Jewish values is what's behind, but there are plenty of non-Jewish folks who we help through Jewish Family Services. Then we have the foundation. I think we all know what a foundation does in terms of fundraising and making sure to, there's a lot of help that goes to Israel through this that I'll talk about a little more later, but it starts with the foundation. And then the JCC, the Jewish Community Center, this covers both adult education and youth education, social events, and our building, the CJC, that houses our preschool, is one of the main functions. One of our teachers is here now. And so it's really a wonderful place, and I have to say, working there, it's really great, especially if you're having a hard day, to just take a walk and see all the little kids, and they are just in their own world, having a wonderful time. So if you haven't visited the CJC, please come, and I would love to show you around. Okay, so getting to Jewish community relations, more specifically. Okay, so what I do, right there, we had a advocacy day for Israel, and I'm showing where exactly the Western Galilee is. And that has to do with our Israel Overseas Committee, which consists of 2 major parts: our partnership together in the Western Galilee, and our Dayton sister city, which is Holon, Israel. Also, our Upstanders Project, sometimes called the Greater Dayton Upstanders Project, sometimes just called Upstanders. I'll talk a lot about that a little later. And our Antisemitism Task Force, the Yom HaShoah Remembrance that happens the Sunday after Yom HaShoah every year, and rotates to the different synagogues as far as location goes. And then Ohio Jewish Communities, which is our government advocacy group that I'll tell you more about. And this is basically the same thing, just in a slightly different format, and I've taken the JCRC Advisory Board, which I should tell you that Bonnie Beeman Rice is here as well, and she is our chairperson for the JCRC, and also our chairperson for Upstanders. Okay, so getting into Israel a little bit, there's basically 3 major ways that we connect through Israel, through the Federation. The first is through JFNA, which is the Jewish Federations of North America. One just kind of side note, and it's just a thing I'm learning being involved with this work, is I was just very interested to learn that this is a unique thing within Judaism, to have a thing that's anything like the Federation. When you're talking about other faiths, there doesn't seem to be kind of an umbrella organization who could point you in the right direction and provide resources overall. Within certain churches, there may be a hierarchy and connection, but not necessarily overall. And I think it's a really nice resource. To that end, we are a small federation in Dayton, okay? We estimate there's about 4,000 Jews in the Dayton area. And so Columbus, for example, has about 35,000, and Cincinnati about 30,000. So they're much larger than us. In those cases, they often will have partnerships with one city. So they might be connected with a city. In our case, for the Federation, we're connected with a region, and we have many others connected with us. I'll talk about that more. But the JFNA has many federations that are part of under the JFNA, and this is some of the projects that they work on, some of which we're involved with, some of which we'd like to get more involved with. So JFNA programs in Israel include immigration and absorption programs, connecting young Jews to Israel, social welfare projects, community building, and emergency relief. Most recently, we've heard a lot about emergency relief, including that we in Dayton raised about $850,000 towards that relief just after October 7th. So the Partnership Together program that I mentioned, Partnership Together is a global network for the promotion, empowerment, and development of deep connections which strengthens Jewish communities in Israel and worldwide by creating revitalized, ongoing, and meaningful engagement based on mutual endeavor and shared Jewish identity. So that's the mission. There's 165 Jewish communities around the world and 43 partnerships with communities in Israel. Like I say, sometimes it's one federation to one city. In our case, we have a consortium. So ours is called the Central Area Consortium, and it connects with the Western Galilee, a pretty large region, and Budapest. So this is the Central Consortium. So we were in the first group that is kind of the Midwest area, and it was a handful of us then. It's grown to 16 communities, and several in Texas. They wanted to join us, but this started about 27 years ago. So it's been going for quite a while, and it's a wonderful group of people. This is the Western Galilee, and sorry about the letters going. I think that's going from PowerPoint to Google, but yeah, so this area, it's beautiful. For many, it's a vacation area. Most importantly, it's very mixed in terms of Arabs and Israelis, or Jews, I should say. They're all Israelis, and there was a big impact. A lot of people don't realize when the war happened. I know we know, but there was evacuations from the north immediately. So for several kilometers, if you were anywhere near the border, you were evacuated. And some people still aren't back. It's happening slow. There's a lot of destruction. We have a ceasefire with Lebanon right now. It started about a month before the current ceasefire. And, but it's still tense, and things can, change at any minute. So I also want to talk about our sister city of Holon. So it's in the blue, so it's just south of Tel Aviv. Some people would consider it kind of a suburb of Tel Aviv, but it's not really a suburb. It's actually the second largest industrial city next to Haifa in all of Israel. So they have a high level of manufacturing and production. And there, tell you a little bit more about them. So first, in terms of the connection to Dayton, Dayton Sister Cities Committee, the program overall, of which I have a commission to be a member of that committee, was created in 1964, and they're a member of Sister Cities International, and there's 7 sister cities, including Holon. So some facts about Holon. I don't think it says this here, but they're known as the City of Children. So that is like, we're Gem City, right? They're the City of Children. And also it doesn't have on here was formed by a group that was from Lodz, Poland. And that's significant to me because that's where my family was from. They were founded in 1935 on sand dunes, just less than 4 miles from Tel Aviv, and became a Dayton sister city in 1998. So it's been a long-term relationship. And one thing that's interesting is the mayor that was the mayor in 1998 was the mayor when I became the JCRC director. But last year they had an election. There's a new mayor now, which is very interesting to kind of start things over when there's been the same person for many, many, many years. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that. The population's a little less than 200,000, and the mayor's Shay Keenan. So, and it's the home base. This is important for Save a Child's Heart. Save a Child's Heart does free and low-cost heart surgeries for people from all around the world. So they come to Alone and get heart surgery. So it's an amazing program, and I'll actually tell you a little bit more about that. It was founded in 1995 by Dr. Conrad Cohen. We in Dayton were already trying to get them to be a sister city. Before sister cities, there was a program that was more akin to like American cities that are established helping desperate cities. You know, it wasn't necessarily put in terms that were as positive as kind of a sister city relationship or a partnership. It was more like, hey, let's help some, you know, almost like a third world country type of approach. And I like the approach we currently have a lot better, but we were already involved with Alone when they really needed a lot of help. Back then, Peter Wells, who was the longtime director of the Federation for 30 years, he's on their board to this day. So they provide cardiac care for children all over the world. They bring sick children in need of to Israel for free of charge, and you can see they participated in training and screening missions to other countries around the world, so both outbound and inbound. And patients and family that travel to Israel are housed at the Legacy Heritage Children's Home. And Legacy Children's Home, established in October 2011, houses the Save a Child's Heart offices, includes living quarters for 60 children, parents, nurses, professionals at the SACH training program, and hosts family visits, group visits, and special occasions such as bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs. You can imagine if a family's going through heart surgery and things like that, they can't time when that's happening. So whether that's the bar bat mitzvah themselves or a family member, a sibling, it's really nice that they're able to accommodate them. The way I'm thinking about it until I've gone to visit is like a Ronald McDonald House type of situation where families who need to stay can stay. So we have third Thursday Dayton Alone exchanges. We just started this going again, and it's super exciting. January, we did economic development. Dayton presents Business First, which is a program that has people see, has governments see themselves not in competition with each other, but there to help each other with best practices and to learn from one another what we could do better. So we had people from Centerville, the city of Dayton, and it's a Montgomery County project, basically talking about the program, but also giving testimonials on it, helped them to see the bigger picture and to learn to get along. I know Bonnie was on that call as well, and she said, I want to make sure to be on the next one. Well, the next one is going to be in February, and they're going to be presenting, because it's Alone's turn to present, they're going to present Save a Child's Heart with the Legacy Heritage Children's Home. And very exciting because a delegation from Dayton, including myself, Meredith Goldman, and Jennifer Holman are going to be on their side of the table for that one. And they were on that call as well as the mayor, of Cologne and the mayor of the city of Dayton. So Mayor Mintz is going to be on that call as well. So it's very, very exciting that we're going to be able to have that connection. Okay, so I mentioned the OJC as one of the organizations. So they say 8 communities, 1 voice. I'm going to talk a little bit about the good work that we do in Ohio through Ohio Jewish Communities, which is our advocacy group. But again, I've learned, because you see something and you're like, this is just how it is. So much like I said, I always knew about the federation, so I thought everything had something like a federation, and we don't. Well, not every state or even region has JCRC directors and others who get together and work together on one mission. So we have 8 of my equivalent that we get together on a regular basis, and we are in a group chat that talk all the time. And unfortunately, there seems to be something every day that's coming up that's affecting us, but where we can see articles and resources and talk to one another. And we're asked to, record testimonials, gather people from the community to speak on what they're experiencing so that we can get legislation, regulations, and things like that passed, not only on at the state level, but also on the Hill. So that's the work that we do. It's a network of 150 state agencies with the purpose of enhancing Jewish communities' ability to serve vital human needs, but the core are the 8 federations that are connected through the JCRC. So members of the board, I mostly just wanted to put this up to let you know that the aforementioned Meryl Goldman, who is on my JCRC advisory board, member at Temple Israel, and also she is our newest member on the board of the OJC, and she's also going to become an Israel. Okay, so specific advocacy. We have lots of accomplishments. This is the 2024 annual report, but I think the biggest one, because we were one of the only states to be able to do it, is the Campus Act, which requires universities to adopt and enforce a policy on racial, religious, and ethnic basis harassment and intimidation. Also includes a $4 million for campus safety grants. So it put money behind it, so it's not just a empty mandate, but it's basically saying you can't say, well, we don't want to violate anyone's freedom of speech rights. We can't say anything. There's nothing we can do about it. We're saying the state legislators are making it that we're saying you have to get together. It's not saying what all the rules are. You have to get together and make policies that are clear, that address how protests are going to happen, how people can speak out and exercise their freedom of speech, but within things that stop it from crossing the line to become anti-Semitic, racist, etc. So it's not just it's not the Antisemitism Act. We're working on that. It is the Campus Act. Yes.
How is Trump getting rid of the DEI and that?
Yeah. So this is what I can say about all questions to do with how will Trump's ideas, specifically executive orders, let's just put it that way, how will that affect us? What I can tell you is, again, we have the resources. I've been on 7 Zooms in the last 10 days about each executive order. So every time an executive order comes up, we have the JFNA calls a meeting, and there's attorneys and lobbyists and other folks that advocate for Jewish issues, telling us what they think this means. Because nobody knows, right? So in their experience and expert opinion, how this might be affected, and they break down each one, some of which, have things that are positive for the Jewish people, most of which it's gonna be challenging. So, but at least we're learning. So I don't have the exact answers. What I can tell you is we have resources that are helping us to learn what it is, and I will communicate that to the best that I can. But it will have an impact, there's no doubt. So one of my other areas is Yom HaShoah remembrance that I mentioned. And I think we're gonna get to specifically talking about anti-Semitism, but I think you hear through some of the things, we're talking about advocacy, we're talking about now the Holocaust. Learning about these things is anti-Semitism work, no matter how you're doing it, because these are things that need to be remembered, and obviously this is the most horrible historical example of anti-Semitism taken to the maximum. So this is for the art and writing contest. This is parts of the brochure that are out now. I know my kids participated from this for years. When I taught religious school here, many of the kids were participating. It's been going on for a long time, and hopefully the kids that are here now are participating in this, and if not here, possibly through their junior high or high school. So specifically, it's 80 years since liberation, right? 1945. So we recognize it internationally on International Holocaust Remembrance Day on January 27th, which marks the liberation of Auschwitz specifically, but there were other dates for other camps to get liberated, and April 29th, 1945 was when Dachau was liberated. So it's gonna be 2 days, April 27th, it's gonna be 2 days before the 80th anniversary. Elaine Buckler is gonna talk about her father's story. I'll just tell you one small part of it, because I don't wanna spoil her wonderful talk. He didn't talk about it for many, many years, like over almost 50 years, he didn't talk about it at all. And then he was, Paul was listening to his radio one morning, and someone got on and was talking about that the Holocaust never happened. He's a just American guy, Christian guy, nothing to do with Judaism. And he went to the radio station and got in and told them what they were saying was not true, that he was an eyewitness to the horrific things that happened. So that's how the family found out that he had all those experiences. And he passed away a while back, and his daughter has continued to share his story. So this ties in real well, because the Yom HaShoah Committee really wants the second generation to be speaking out. And so this is, in this case, because the anniversary, it's a second generation liberator. So we need to hear all the stories. So I hope you'll be able to join us on that day. Okay, so another program that I mentioned is the Upstander program. We have some of the founders. I know Vicki was involved in that, and Bobby as well. If there's someone else in the room that I'm missing, it started with some conversations, and then I know that we took a lot from the Nancy and David Wolf, let's get this wrong, the Nancy and David Wolf Holocaust and Humanities Center. Okay, it's a mouthful. There, on the humanities side, they say, yes, we're showing you all the horrors of the Holocaust, but now what? What do we do with this energy? And we want to focus on humanitarian efforts. But also, they tell the story, they say, obviously we know about the Schindlers of the world saving many, many people, and there were those cases. But if you added it all up, it really was the small acts of kindness, the small times when you said, someone was hiding an individual and you look the other way. You don't report them, you just walk by like you never saw anything. Or someone at an immigration office that goes ahead and stamps a Jewish person's passport even though they know they're not supposed to, right? Little things like this really went a long way, and they refused to be bystanders to the horrors, right? Instead of being a bystander, they were an upstander. So that's where we get this program from. We're trying to learn from the legacy of those who came before us. We take action to enlighten, inspire, and empower today, providing a safety net for each other and creating a new generation of upstanders for tomorrow. We do not receive federal funding for this program, okay? So that's an answer to your question, right? DEI may have to change names, may have to be different, but we are not going to stop helping people who are marginalized and who need it. And this is our tool in the Dayton Jewish community to reach out to other communities, whether it's a racial minority, whether it's an LGBTQ person, whether person and people groups, whether it is disabilities, whether it is their religion, of different religions, whatever it might be, we're there to help. Our next meeting is tomorrow night. We're doing planning for our 2025 for all the activities. We had a great 2024 with which included events that focused on social engagement, focused on community service, on education, as well as we had an inspiring dialogue where we did kind of a speed dating type of situation where we talked about the different issues and we were guided through conversation. And in that process, I learned what a dialogue is as opposed to just a conversation. It was excellent and a great tool. If any of you were interested in learning more about it, please ask me about it. Well, I don't know how that. Kind of talked about that. Great. So now I'm going to get into the portion where this is kind of the anti-Semitism talk that I've given at schools, to teachers, to the police, local police, actually cadets that were learning about becoming police officers. So I'm sharing it with you, but I understand that in most cases you guys are gonna know the answer to this, but I want you to see what I show people, because you may have some input and say, hey, take this angle or that angle, or hey, maybe there's a few things you're like, I don't even know that. So I don't want you to think I'm teaching you something completely new. I'm kind of showing you my hand. So Israel, especially now, is probably the first thing. If you say Jewish, you say Israel, which is important towards anti-Semitism, especially when it's not wonderful things that they're seeing on the news, right? No matter what your perspective is, it's grim, right? So when you're hearing about things, most of the time. I tried to show them how small Israel is, right? Does everyone see where it is, right? So right here, amongst lots of large nations, and then I get into, on other talks, not necessarily the anti-Semitism talk, but to show the north, bordered with Lebanon, and where Gaza is in particular, since that's what's in the news, and showing the West Bank, just showing what a small country it is, and where it's located in the world. But the next slide is a little bit more telling. When we're talking about, you'll hear the argument oftentimes, you'll hear, why should the Jews have their own country? That doesn't make any sense, you know, we here in America, it's funny to say this right now, but we believe in separation of church and state, right? We believe that we should be free to practice whatever religion we want in our country. So to have a country that is of a certain religion, people would have a problem with that. When you say all of the red, they are Muslim nations, you know, that's not a value judgment, that's just what it is, right? And then tiny Israel is the Jewish nation that's there. And you'll see that even within the blue, there's some red cut out for the West Bank in that area. So just something to think about, keep in mind, and when we're talking about anti-Semitism, it's just interesting to have that perspective. So another, what do you think of, this is back to what do you think of when you think of Jewish, so people might know about the bar mitzvah. So we talk a little bit about what that is. They think of Hanukkah, tell them, contrary to popular belief, it's not Jewish Christmas, although it's sometimes treated that way. And we talked a little bit about what the Hanukkah story in a little bit. Of course, they think of the Holocaust, and Jesus comes up a lot. Jesus was a Jew. So we kind of talk about that. As you can imagine, that's a little bit more of a delicate topic, so I don't spend too much time talking about that, but that is a connection. Some people might know that, the background. Okay, so now we're gonna get into some anti-Semitic myths. And then what I'll do is I'll talk about the myth and I'll, kind of do some debunking, but just to know that it's out there. So anti-Zionism or criticism of Israel is never anti-Semitic, right? So again, we know that that's not true, right? So, and the example I give, is someone sees someone with a yarmulke and they start yelling at them anti-Zionist things. You don't know how they feel about Israel. You just think they're probably a Jewish person, right? They didn't say, now if they had an Israeli flag, that's a different thing. But if they literally are just a Jewish person existing and you are being critical of them or talking to them about that, well, that's anti-Semitism. That's not anti-Zionist. But it is complicated, but we try to stay away from nevers, right? Denial. The Holocaust didn't even happen. It's amazing to think, but there are plenty of people who still see this as the truth. And over the last decade or so, we've seen ideas like this get more and more support, and things that we thought were unbelievable on a daily basis. We're hearing about groups of people who are giving their stamp of approval to it. So people need to know that that's out there, so that we can talk about it. Jews have too much power. It's always out there. Relative to what, et cetera, so on. So it's hard to say. Jews are disloyal, so this comes from our acknowledgement that, we're in the diaspora, right? So if we're in the diaspora and we have loyalty to Israel or to any home country, it's funny because speaking of DEI, I often try to move anti-Semitism towards DEI, and many in my my field do the same. They say, hey, let's not think of this as anything else but DEI. So let's group it in. So like, for example, on campuses, when there's protests against Israel, which is really against Jews, let's say, but Jews are a protected group, just like your group who's protesting. So, let's realize that this is harassment and this is inappropriate. Well, this strategy might have to be looked at a little bit if DEI is under attack. So we're gonna have to reframe again. But the disloyalty comes from many of us being immigrants. Jews are greedy, which is funny because we all know Jews are cheap, Jews are rich, Jews are greedy. Like, which is it? So you get it from every end, that you're gonna have lots and lots of power and money, but you also script and save and will not part with any money. Well, how do you get that power that you have? So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't myths. This is all of these are ancient and all of these are not new myths. Obviously, the Holocaust is in the last 80 years, but these have been around for many, many years. Okay, so One of the things I'm highlighting here is just that these days it's coming from the right and it's coming from the left. So it's just to recognize it. From the right, white supremacists, Charlottesville, Pittsburgh, the Tree of Life, horrible murders that happened there. And from the left, pro-Palestinian rallies, and I'm not saying that pro-Palestinian rallies are on the face anti-Semitic. I'm saying that there's opportunities for anti-Semitism to happen, like in the case that I made earlier. So, and then is it anti-Zionist? Is it anti-Semitic? Those things are coming up.
Is Jewish Federation going to make a statement about what Elon Musk did?
I don't know what Elon Musk did in this case, but
He did and how,
oh yeah, the Jewish Federation has done that. Dayton hasn't specifically done that, but the Jewish Federation has. Yeah, they've addressed it. I actually don't.
He certainly hasn't made the Dayton paper.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the ADL, and the ADL stated that they did not see that as that was what was happening. Yes, Tom.
Just a quick question. How do you handle college students who participate, Jewish students who participate in the pro-Palestinian?
How do we handle it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
What I would say is it's education. We're constantly trying, and we have the concept of a big tent. So we generally will listen and have discussions and talk, but it happens. I've talked to many.
I have two daughters who participate in the program.
Exactly.
Right, and so
and I do too. I have one.
So how do you deal with, your own kids participating in something that could be anti-Semitic?
What I would say is, let's get together and talk about it, because I'm as open to ideas as you might be, because it's a very, very challenging situation.
Right.
There's been lots of discussions about this.
I mean, I know that this is not the topic that
Sure.
we're really here talking, but part of it just comes from their compassion.
That's right.
And that's.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
a good thing,
Yes.
So it's so complicated.
Yeah, the answer is definitely not, scold and yell and scream and, shake people, take them by both shoulders and shake them. That's not the answer. The answer is dialogue and education and conversation and honestly listening, so we can find out where they're coming from. It's very important, and that's,
Taught them if we see people suffering
yes,
to speak out, so it's.
exactly. It's challenging. It's a big challenge, especially, within the more liberal side of the Jewish people. It's the challenges are there. Yeah.
When you talk to school groups, do you tell them that not all Jews agree with things that Israel does? I mean, so being Jewish
100%.
doesn't equally.
Yes.
Israel, right or wrong?
Yes, and you'll see that there's a lot of slides in this presentation, and I'll talk about it. There's a good spot, because I didn't include it. The aforementioned Jennifer Holman and I taught a class recently, and I was asked to come speak, and I said, yes, I'd be happy to come speak about anti-Semitism. And they said, well, this is world religions. Can you tell us what being Jewish is all about? I'm like, not qualified. So, but I can find someone, and so Jennifer, who teaches 5th and 8th grade here and is the education intern, is that happening? Yeah. In the future?
No, she's our fellow.
Fellow, sorry, not intern, education fellow here. She is very well versed, and we teamed up and we taught, and that was the first example that she gave. It was a group of 6th and 7th graders. So she said, how many people are here are 6th graders? They raised their hand. How many people are 7th graders? They raised their hand. How many people love math? Raise their hand. How many people do not love math? How many people love art, etc. So on. We went through a few questions, and we said, but we're all in this class, right? We're all together. We have some things that are just a fact about us, and we have some things that are our own beliefs, right, and our own opinions, but we're all still a part of the class. And she and I that we recognize our Judaism very different than each other, but we're both just as Jewish as each other. And so when it came to Israel, I pointed that out, because Israel was my portion. And I said, just like in the same way, talked about that with regard to kashrut, which I told them about, different people recognize and celebrate their Judaism in different ways. And I think that's different than a lot of faiths. I think a lot of faiths, it's more clear of a list than being Jewish, but okay. So this is just to show that it happens here. The Goyim Defense League had posts about an outdoor event that was happening in the summer in Dayton, and we're gonna get them. Obviously they're talking about the Jewish Cultural Festival. Authorities were alerted, nothing ever happened. They actually had the dates wrong, so they weren't very sophisticated, but nevertheless, this is serious things, and they do happen locally, even from this was a group in Florida, so. And then lawn flyers, this was actually in Clayton that these were handed out, and this is for Aryan Freedom Network, whitepower.org. Do not go to that website. They don't need the clicks, but it happens right here, and I'm afraid it's going to get worse before it gets better. This is just real quick, the law enforcement role. Many of you serve on the security committee. We involve ORIC, which is a centralized Ohio police information is gathered. They're on all the websites, etc. They have access to information. We put out APBs and things like that, announcements when we see suspicious activity. And then we involve the police and the FBI, specifically the Joint Terrorism Task Force. We are used to the locked doors and bulletproof glass and things like that, but other churches and mosques and things like that. I've been to events through interfaith groups that I'm involved with. People are just coming in and out, like there's no worries. We've also hosted interfaith events at the CJCE, and when we're talking to them about logistics, they're like, yeah, we don't know who's coming, we don't know when they're coming. We're like, boy, we need to check IDs, we need a sign-in sheet, people need to leave their bags in the car, just different rules of how we do things. And they just, at this point, have not had the same experiences and information that we have. So to that end, we recently hosted an event that was security for houses of worship, and we had 20 people in attendance for that, learning about how to make their church, mosque, or place of worship more secure. And it was very well attended. I think well received as well. Okay, so I list 3 areas, and then I'll talk about more. And this has become, it is a program, Shine a Light. Go to this website. It's great. It's about, earlier I said, Hanukkah is not Jewish Christmas, but we know that it's celebrated around the same time, and that gives us an opportunity to go into schools or to have, like a public candle lighting event or something that shines a light on beautiful things about being Jewish, wonderful things about being Jewish. And that, by shining a light on Judaism, it helps to reduce anti-Semitism. I know simply by going to the class and acting professionally in front of them and engaging, we kept their attention for an hour. And then there was Q&A, 20 minutes to follow. And they were engaged with hands raised, and most of the times they actually had a question to ask. So it was really, really great. I know that simply by talking about Judaism, that helps with anti-Semitism. So, it's a long road, but those types of things. So shining the light But the specific program, we got a grant, bought a bunch of electric Hanukkiahs, and was able to get them into schools. Just saying, if you're decorating for Christmas, we're not gonna tell you to do that, some schools just have a policy, they don't decorate. But if you are, could you also include this menorah? We offered them PJ library books, we offered them people to come in and speak or read, things like that. So 35 schools took advantage of this, so it was really, really nice to offer that to them. Of course, I'm gonna promote being an upstander, that's a great way, because now you asked about the, our own children, well, I don't think people in other groups would know that that's even a possibility, right? So they're listening to us and we're talking about our own situation. We're listening to them. So I think these exchanges and interactions, as we listen, as we learn, as we speak and communicate, we help with anti-Semitism. And then the ADL, that's where I got all of the slides for this. That the Elon Musk situation notwithstanding, I agree with their stances most of the time.
Well, I do want to point out
Yeah,
that article that was in the Daily News. Did you read the entire article? There was only one expert that said that what Elon Musk wasn't the signal, and there was 4 other ones in the
Exactly.
article that said it was.
yeah,
And so to point out
right.
that one person, I think, does an injustice to the.
Yeah, because it's the balance, right? And, fair and balanced isn't really fair and balanced. Giving crazy ideas airtime is not necessarily what I think we need to be doing. I agree. So this was a lovely video that's not gonna play, but this is a young lady, I'll tell you about her. This is a young lady who was at college. She was involved in her student government. She noticed she was one of the only Jewish people involved in student government. BDS was coming on campus and trying to get people to divest, get the campus to officially divest and put resolutions in and in their school rules, which has been successful in some schools. And so she decided to run for president. She was elected president. So this is a speech, a little bit of her giving her graduation speech. And anyway, then she went and did an internship for the ADL, and now she's working on these campus issues for the ADL. It's really nice. She's a remarkable young woman. Go to the website that I showed before and check out her, besides the common myths, there's also great videos about people doing wonderful things. So this is the conclusion of a bunch of research. Now we're gonna get into some stats and stuff for some kind of current, slightly update information from the ADL. This is one of the other things. They have compelling stories and education, but they also have statistics because they do these studies. So basically, there's increasingly concerning state of anti-Semitism in America, anti-Jewish and anti-Israel, which they separate. The positions are high. The more likely one is to hold a negative sentiment towards Israel, the more likely they are to believe anti-Jewish tropes. Social networks and social norms increasingly point towards a growing acceptance of anti-Semitism, researchers also found. So those are some of the myths, right? Jews are greedy. If you are anti-Israel, you're more likely to also believe one or more of the tropes that we know aren't necessarily true, right? They're just wide swaths of a discriminatory belief, right? But if you believe in one of the things, it connects to the others. So that's why you need to give talks like this and make people aware. They have some beliefs that they didn't even realize were there. It's just, oh yeah, I've always known that about that group of people. So after a steady decline from 1964 to 2019, that's many, many years, I didn't do the math yet. Endorsement of 6 or more anti-Jewish tropes has increased. So 2022, 2024, we'll see what 2025 brings, but That's, it's scary that there's an uptick. So it's the highest since 1964. Young generations endorse more anti-Jewish tropes. Let me repeat that again. Younger generations are endorsing more anti-Jewish tropes. That's incredible to me. Because if there's one thing you know about the younger generation, is that they're more open to different groups. They are more progressive, just that's a natural thing. And the fact that it's going the wrong way for our particular group is very, very scary. People are more willing to join a club denying Zionists, endorse more anti-Jewish tropes. I don't know if you know what this is about, but there'll be a, let's say, an LGBTQ group, this is where I've seen it, they'll have in their bylaws that you cannot be a Zionist, okay? Because they're seeing that as someone who is discriminatory towards a group of people that should be protected. So if you're a Zionist and you're an LGBTQ person, you're not welcome in their club. It's a pH test, it's a litmus test, I guess. It's, you know, so that's what that's referring to. If you're someone that says, yeah, that makes sense, that checks out, that's fine, you're also going to be someone who believes all these tropes. Over 40% of Americans think that Israelis intend to cause maximal suffering to the Palestinians. I don't know, some of you may be Israelis, you may have family in Israel, you may have, I don't think most Jews think that, I don't think most Israelis believe this, but 40% of Americans think that's true. Younger generations are much more comfortable being friends with a Hamas supporter. Specifically, they say, I support Hamas, which means they support what happened on October 7th. The greatest number of Jews killed in a single day since the Holocaust. So, sad. Okay, and then now I'm on to, done with my presentation, and now I'm stealing from Rabbi Oram, who's amazing. And, you know, between the cartoons, but I'm more interested in these dog whistles because I've talked to different people, different adults, smart people, and I'll say something like, you understand on the news when they say globalist, you should hear Jew. And you should hear it not in the, oh, I have a friend who's a Jew. You hear it in the way that we don't like to hear, right? The negative, with whatever negative tropes they have attached to that. Capitalist, socialist, globalist, elite. Sometimes they'll say East Coast elite, the news media, internationalist, Zionist, New York, just obviously not every time they say the word New York, but in context. Dual loyalties, poisoning the well, Jews as animals, Jews are just a religion, because they try to take it that it's not a culture. Jews are all white Europeans. Obviously, we know that's not the case. So again, these are just things to think about, not that we're going to necessarily get into too much. This is from Rabbi Aaron's presentation. You know, this was like ideas for discussion, exploring how and if the following are intertwined with anti-Semitism, criticism of Israel, anti-Zionism, pro-Palestinian advocacy, holding all Jews accountable for Israel, the slogan from the river to the sea, inclusion or suspicion of Jews / Zionists, and how does free speech fit in? Each of these could be a whole talk that we could talk about, but I did want to point out one of them, which was the biggest surprise for me, the slogan from the river to the sea. So some of us have college age kids, and one of the things I learned that I just truly didn't know was remarkable to me as someone who grew up, you know, in the house of a Holocaust survivor. I knew what the river to the sea meant, and I thought it meant what I thought it meant. It does not mean that to college kids. It just doesn't. It's not even close to meaning that. To them, it means freedom for Palestinians. That's it. You know, much in the same way we would ask for rights. I'm not saying that that's true. I'm saying from many of their perspectives, that's how they're thinking of it. They're not necessarily thinking of it in the blood-stained rivers and seas. Yes.
In Jewish circles, though, isn't that phrase also used to mean that from the river to the sea is going to be all Jewish?
I'm sure there is, but my historical knowledge of it is that it was adapted as a slogan that was anti-Jewish. And, you know, you hear certain things and you just say, you associate that with, and you have a gut reaction, and all I'm saying is, sometimes from all of us, we need to learn and understand, okay, they're using the same words, but I don't know if they you know, part of it is like, do you even understand what that has meant to us historically? And some of them will stop saying it if you educate them, yeah.
I remember that phrase originally from 1948.
Okay,
And the Arab country said from the river to the sea and wipe them out.
well, that's Jews,
Yes, wipe the
Correct.
Jews out. That's my recollection, and
exactly,
that's what's lost. Now, 1948, there are a lot of you who don't remember that.
that's right,
But to me, it was vivid.
yeah,
And getting rid of all the Jews from the Arab countries. And just wiping them out and sending them out by millions.
sure, of
And where did they go?
course,
And so I think that history
yeah,
that is just lost. I have daughters who are sort of almost seniors
Mhm.
who worry about what's going on in Gaza with the lack of freedom without remembering going back to why that happened, why you're worried about your safety
right,
because these people are out to get rid of you.
sure.
So
Sure, and yeah, I just think educating ourselves about people's perspective, and it just keeps coming back to shining a light and listening, so.
I think like there's something to say like, oh, it doesn't mean from the river. You say, oh, from the river to the sea, like that for them it means freedom for Palestinians, but like the organizers of these events who are funding these events know that that's.
Totally, sorry.
So it's like, you don't
Yes.
get a free pass to say, oh, it just means, no, you don't. They know, that's the propaganda.
They are being manipulated.
You are being manipulated.
Don't get me wrong.
You are being
They
used
are
as a pawn.
definitely being influenced and
And you have a
manipulated.
responsibility to educate yourself as a college student.
That is true. I'm not giving them a free pass in any way. I just want to lower the heat a little bit on being alarmed that how can these college students say such a horrific thing? And they are victims just as much in many ways, and they need to be educated. And that's why we need to be able to talk. So back to your point,
Yeah,
Tom.
it doesn't help to tell the Jewish protesters that they're being manipulated. I've tried that, it doesn't work.
I realize that too. Yes, you are correct. You are correct. I agree with that.
I think it would be of an advantage in your talk and everyone's talk.
Yes,
Is put the Jewish population in perspective. How many Jews are there in the world?
right.
What is the percentage of the Jewish population worldwide? We're so minuscule
Sure.
that what kind of major effect are we having on the world? Unfortunately, it outweighs our percentage.
Well, let's just look, I just said we were 4,000 people, to my knowledge, you know, it's a moving target in Dayton. And Dayton is, what, 800,000, the greater Dayton
Maybe
area?
at this point.
So, I mean, it's a small percentage, you know, what's that, 2% in quick math? So, I mean, it's,
Well, we control everything, so.
yeah, exactly, yeah, it doesn't matter, we're a small percentage, but we control everything, obviously. So just some provocative things to think about. Okay, so this is our little breakout section, if we have just a few minutes to do this. So I just want you to answer these 4 questions. Do you see anti-Semitism in your real life, or do you only see it online or in the news? Please share some examples of this, both in real life and for online experiences. What effect is it having on you, and how have you thought about responding, and have you taken action? Then the next few slides are going to talk about if you see something, what do you do, et cetera, so on, but I want to hear from you a little bit. So let's just take 5 minutes and talk at your table as a group. Oh,
So you redo Jeff's math.
okay.
It's half of a percent.
Okay, sorry, I doubled instead of half.
And it's not surprising to me that I heard parents say that their kid doesn't listen to them.
Yes, that's true.
You're good.
Not you,
All
right?
right.
There you are. Yes, you are. I have to say, I don't know, I have to order. I mean, occasionally I'm not here.
Okay, I got plenty.
Yes, here, but I mean, generally, I don't feel
Yeah.
pressure of
I think.
it. I was somebody.
I find that first question very, very interesting, because what's online versus real life, it's hard to distinguish. We have it in our mind, and we want
I would say yes.
I'm sorry. I call my son.
I say yes.
I have email myself about what's going on. So I do everything. That's what I do.
So one thing over what I remember was trying to get across country to get to school.
Yeah. Trying to get it to Temple when they was having settled, but they're having one of the walks down Riverside. Yeah,
That's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, it is very.
You say, we had one who refused to do that. You know, last year, when it took some discussion.
So they never break.
It certainly is possible. I have several years ago. He was very lovely. She was dumb. German Baptist. Just very lovely woman. It was when war was when president. Okay. She commented.
Let's hire a private eye.
She likes him.
Yeah, we just take another minute and then be ready to.
Not appreciate war, no, war. And the thing is, I have to say, she said, that probably doesn't bother you. She doesn't know it doesn't, it's okay. But again, she was a lovely woman. I think she
So
was
does it- let me
not
ask this
to
question.
be nasty to somebody,
Does
but
it
this
affect
was
you?
part of her mindset.
Yeah,
Don't
we-
let somebody who's very shy.
You know, because
But she was, like her terms, you know.
there's a lot of it.
But you can't stop hearing these things, I mean, you know.
You grew up where?
Me, it's like, comments, whenever I'm at work, comments like.
You still hearing that kind of thing? I haven't heard that for a long time.
Okay, I know I didn't keep you very long, but does someone want to share something they may have seen? Let's use something that you've seen in your real life first, one example. Yes. Great.
So I didn't bring this up because I have a very lively group that is still talking right now.
Okay.
So,
Let's bring it back.
I married, when I was married to my first wife, she worked for Ponderosa, that glass building at the airport. And of course, Jerry Office was the president. And so there was a incident where the HR people didn't want to hire her because they were, and this person in the HR department was black. She was trying to hire blacks in. And my wife was a by name request for this specific position. And then her eventual boss told her that the HR person said, don't you know she's a Jew? And then her boss said, well, why don't you just go talk to Jerry Office? And so she did get hired from that, but that's just one instance. Of course, that was 40 years ago, but still valid.
Anyone have other examples of stuff happening in real life?
I guess. Drew, you want to do it?
No, I was gonna pass the mic.
Okay, good. Okay.
I'll have to say that, yes, I hope this is not too personal, but in my family, since I'm a convert, I from time to time encounter anti-Semitism in my family. More specifically, my own father. He worked for the World Health Organization, and while he was working for the World Health Organization, went to Israel and also went to Palestine. And when he would come back from his work assignments, he would always characterize himself as pro-Palestinian. And this is many, many years ago, even before all what's going on recently. So how that affected me is that I always felt that he was against me, right, for being Jewish. And how I dealt with it, or how I took action, is I tried to educate both of my parents about what it meant to be Jewish, and how we did that is we conducted a Seder at their house. So that's how we took action.
Yeah. That's great. Anyone else?
I'll give one for Peter.
Okay, yeah.
When I was still working at Montgomery County Children's Services, they were celebrating Holocaust in April. And so they asked Gary if he would come and read his poetry at all of our 3 locations. And so he started out with my location. And so he read his poetry, they asked questions and answers. It went on for about 45 minutes, and when Gary was finished, and he really did have a room full of people. 2 Christian women came up and tried to convert him at the end. Do you remember that? Yeah, and Gary was very congenial and said, thank you very much for letting me know your opinion and.
Sure.
Shut up.
So I think one of the big things here, I mean, these are important, but did you notice, it's just interesting, and then there's nothing wrong with using these examples, but all three were from a few years ago, right? Or more. It's interesting because I'm sitting here telling you that we're 300% up and all these tropes and all these things, and it's there, it's real. I'm not saying it's not real. These were just three examples. I'm sure there are more real ones from now. But it's just interesting because it just shows you that online thing and that hearing about it, and sometimes things that are happening online feel even more real. I'm in no way reducing the fact that these things are happening, but
I'd just like to express how we have seen it, Vicki and I. We do grants for Beth Jacobs, and we have to look up information. For example, we got tinted glass and security guards. It's so sad that you have to get security guards because of what is going on. You know, we've had some people, I mean, we haven't had any trouble, but you get some people that come in and you don't know who they are, or somebody who tries to convert you to their religion that comes in. And we've had issues with that before. So we have done a lot of work getting lights in the parking lot through the grants. And so this has helped to lessen the issue of people that are members or not even members of our congregation feeling more safe due to what's going on in the world. I want to ask, I forget what the program is where they come to the schools, they bring up a bus or whatever to the schools.
oh,
you
yeah,
know?
Lifeline, that's
I have an issue with that because I'm reading about it.
Yep.
Kids who don't want to be a part of it are now being bullied, no matter what
yeah,
religion.
let me give context to that. So, what I'm gonna tell you is that we're not gonna have time to talk about it, but, Bonnie will be my witness. We're working on putting a public program together on, time release programs from school that allow kids out to get religious education. As long as it's off property with parental permission and not during core courses. Recently in Ohio, they changed the law from they may participate in programs to they shall participate in these programs, meaning as a school district. They still need those three criteria, the parent's permission, that it's off property and it's not during core classes. But it gets harder to fight when it's almost a mandate. So that being said, we're gonna have a program specifically on that because it's a huge issue to address it. Yes. That's only one of the many things that are wrong. But yes.
There's some,
Okay.
The microphone is for people who can't hear very well.
oh, well.
Okay. You get
And for the recording, okay. I think there's something about the phrasing of that first question that as someone like my age, like in that group of people who have like this high, like this like highest, but like higher belief in anti-Semitism, when the line between anti-Semitism you experience in real life and online is very blurry. Like there's often times where like I'll be online like, oh, anti-Semitism is so high and I come here and there's bagels, we're having a good time and she's all right. Like, yeah, so there is like a point in making that distinction, but I can't count like how many times I've been talking to friends about the Jewish issue, and then they bring up something they saw online as just a fact.
Yes.
And why are you even showing up to the LGBTQ event if you don't take this thing you saw online as gospel? So like the lines.
Let me just do it. I think online cyberbullying and online like communicating this stuff, that's not, it's hard, it's a nuanced question. I think better worded would be something like things you've heard about versus things you've personally experienced. That if you are directly hearing about things that are, but you're hearing it through a digital source, that's still discrimination, you know. and real.
One I read about this morning is how this eliminating DEI might affect the Holocaust area at the Air Force Museum. And will they take that away because it's inclusion or not inclusion? That was one thing that bothered me. Second thing I would like to say, Israel has the absorption centers and how that has made people coming into the country part of a community faster than what we have. And wouldn't it be nice if the United States had some sort of absorption centers for immigrants that we would welcome to get them into the society and more integrated into what we do. And the last, I would like to ask the question of how you thought how responding and how have you taken action? Most of you know I was an elected official for many years, for decades. There were very few Jewish people, and there's still very few Jewish people that I know in the Dayton area, because I was involved on the regional area boards that I knew were Jewish. I would be in a room of 100 elected officials and maybe 2 of us, possibly 3, but 2 of representatives from all the communities in Miami Valley were Jewish. So I think what we need to have is more of us, even though we're a few, participate in what's going on, because as an individual, it's hard for them. I've been accepted as a Jew in my community. They all know, no one, I've never made it a secret. And for me, as an individual, a woman, Jewish, and Democrat, in Greene County, which is red, is amazing. But I think it's an individual thing that you have to become part of it. And so I would encourage more of you younger people to do that.
Agreed. So what I put up here is, how do you take action if you see something? First of all, recognize the anti-Semitism and equally recognize when it's not anti-Semitism. Evaluate the situation and choose the response. Okay, before reacting, ask yourself these questions. Safety above all, is it safe to speak up? How well do I know this person who has said this anti-Semitic thing? What is the motivation of the speaker? Did the person intend to be offensive? What else is happening and who else is around? Do I need help? And how can I best engage the speaker and begin an interaction and discussion? These things happen very quickly in your mind, but understanding this and know this, by the way, of course, this doesn't just apply to anti-Semitism. This applies to any sort of bullying, any sort of, misogyny. It could be whatever it is. We know that we are multitudes, but one of our things is being Jewish, and this is one of the ways to react and take positive action in a safe way. So here are the possible responses. Ignore it. Respond publicly, respond privately, report it, and use our organization, the Federation. Please call me directly, or call our organization. They'll get you to the right person, depending specifically what it is. Like I mentioned, Jewish Family Services, it could be the type of discrimination that it's also maybe in elder care, or there could be a disability involved, as well as anti-Semitism, and that's going to be Tara. But I can direct her to you, she can direct you to me, so we can get to the bottom of it. And the ADL is always a good starting place. I have an excellent relationship with Kelly Fishman, who is the director for our region. She's in Cleveland. She's been down here. I've been up there. We definitely have a strong relationship, and we're continuing with education in our area. But these are some ways. So see something, say something, but who you say it to is very important. Yes.
How about this past few days where they were protesting or, over the expressway?
Yes.
So does anything happen with saying something with that, even though they said they could do it, they weren't?
I would say if you saw something like that, like let's say, not that you saw it online, because trust me, if you saw it online, I saw it from 5 sources already, personally, but if you see it directly, then that's the type of thing that you would report to me. Whether something is gonna be done about the people who hung swastikas from an overpass on I-75, if you haven't heard about this. You know, that's a law enforcement issue, and that's why we get them involved and report it. But as far as, we also need to be careful to not give some of these stories too much heat, because, for example, a lot of, and Jewish people have worked on this, federations have worked on this, to not show it, because that's what they want. They want pictures, look what we were able to accomplish. I had a swastika painted on my fence when I was a kid, and it was a busy street where it was painted. And we didn't take pictures of it. There was not a story in the newspaper. It was my entire synagogue. I was only 3 blocks away from the synagogue. They marched down with Torahs and music and sung songs and took it off. And we had a nice community get together around it, but they made sure to not give it airtime.
Regarding that, swastikas on the
Yeah.
overpass, the next day, encouragingly and touchingly, there were people that had hung Love Wins banners
Great.
over and had positive things to
Yeah,
say.
and anti-protest.
That really made you feel happy, encouraged.
Yes. A non-violent solution and response, yes.
And that's something I think we can do, show our support for the Jewish community in Cincinnati, just by writing a letter of support with everything, and encouraging our partners in the secular community to say.
Yep. Yes, and this is something we did with the, eating the dogs and the cats situation with our Springfield friends. We, Bonnie really, wrote a letter of support from us to them, and it actually got some national attention because my phone was ringing off the hook with people in the Jewish community who look on a map and see Springfield and go, oh, that's Dayton. And so they were calling me, what are we doing about the president or the candidate for presidency at the time lying about these immigration population, how are we protecting them? And a letter of support is how we did it. And by the way, we're continuing to try to work with groups in Springfield so that we can do an upstander event, which we're very, very much want to do with them.
I was gonna say too, that those people, I believe that was probably Blood Tribe, that's doing that.
In Springfield, yeah.
Those are very dangerous people, and they are the ones that, why we have the security, the main ones, they're what they believe in that great theory. They believe that Jews they want all the power, and what they want to do is dominate the world, and they want to take away power from white people. Now, I'm just telling you what they say.
Yeah.
And that was the motivation behind the Pittsburgh Tree of Life. I mean, we could go on.
No,
And back
sure.
here in Dayton, the one that you recall, the incident at Walmart, the recent one, where there was a woman who was badly injured, and the shooter took his life. And they said it was a African American woman, and in the paper it said, and I haven't heard anything since, that they did find Nazi material on his computer. And I said, at that point, we believe in that replacement.
That's right.
They're dangerous.
Yep, it's very dangerous, and the ADL and another group is suing the Blood Tribe because their protests went beyond where they were allegedly, they had guns, we knew this, and they're allowed to have them out, but they actually were pointing them at people, and they were kind of dispersed, so they're gonna be.
In fact, they were in East Palestine after the train derailment, saying that Jews were the ones behind that derailment.
Right, yeah, because that was a confusion about East Palestine versus Palestine in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So we're able to measure the intelligence of some of these protesters.
Here in Dayton. We also have other groups in
Yeah.
there that people probably don't even know, Lone Wolf and, a woman, group. I mean, there's all kinds of different groups who are anti-Semitic.
And we're gonna see more and more of it, that's just a fact, it's the state of it, so we need to be aware of it and use some of the tools that we discussed. My phone, my office door is always open and my phone is always, you can ask my wife, I'm never without it. I'm happy to take your call and, discuss these things, but we also, on the other way, we don't wanna lose hope. We don't wanna overreact, we wanna lean on one another and, just keep fighting the good fight because it's important and we need to do it, so. Thank you, everyone. Now, I'll stick around for a while if you want to ask me individual questions. Thank you.
Just a reminder, no brunch next week, but in 2 weeks, we have Marshall Weiss and his topic is Temple Israel at 175 years. That should be interesting.
She doesn't look a day over 160.
Oh.